I never imagined that the day of my twin brother's funeral would be the day my entire reality cracked wide open. My name is Claire. I'm 32, and for most of my life, I believed nothing could separate Aaron and me. We were twins, two halves of the same soul. Growing up, we finished each other's sentences, shared the same mischievous grin, and even when distance pulled us apart as adults, there was always this invisible tether between us. That's why when they told me he had died in a hiking accident, I didn't believe it at first. I kept waiting for him to call to laugh and say it was some twisted joke. But then came the funeral. It was raining lightly that morning, droplets tapping against the canopy stretched over the gravesite. Everyone was dressed in black faces, drawn and solemn, though something about the atmosphere felt off, too quiet, too rehearsed. My parents sat stiff in the front row, their expressions carved from stone. They didn't shed a single tear, didn't clutch one another for comfort. It was as though they were attending a board meeting rather than burying their son. Beside me, my husband Daniel held my hand so tightly that my fingers ached. It was supposed to be reassuring, but instead it felt like a clamp, like he was keeping me in place. When the priest began the final prayers and the casket was lowered into the ground, a hollowness spread through my chest, so deep it nearly swallowed me. That was the moment my phone buzzed in my pocket. I shouldn't have looked. Who checks their phone at a funeral? But something inside urged me like an instinct. I pulled it out, and when I saw the sender, my blood turned to ice. It was from Aaron. The message was short, jagged, impossible. "I'm not dead, that's not me in the casket." I felt the ground tilt beneath me, my vision blurred. I wanted to scream but forced myself to stay silent, eyes darting around the cemetery to see if anyone else noticed. My hands trembled as I typed back. "Aaron, where are you?" A long pause. Then 3 more sentences appeared. "Can't say. They're listening. Don't trust your husband or our parents." The phone slipped in my hand. My breath caught like I'd been punched. What did he mean? Why would he warn me about Daniel, my husband, and the very people who raised us? That night I couldn't sleep. Daniel tried to hold me, whispering soft words, but his arms felt colder than the rain at the funeral. In my gut, dread began to bloom. Whoever was buried in that grave, it wasn't my brother. And suddenly the people I thought I could trust most, my husband and my parents, looked like strangers in the dark. The next morning, I drove to Aaron's apartment. He had lived alone in a cramped space above a hardware store, a place always cluttered with his chaos. Old records, piles of books, half-finished projects. But when I unlocked the door, the air hit me like a slap. It was spotless, too spotless. No photos on the walls, no toothbrush in the bathroom, no cereal boxes left half open in the kitchen. Even the fridge was bare except for a jar of pickles, and Aaron hated pickles. It didn't feel like someone had died. It felt like someone had been erased. I tore through the apartment desperate. Aaron was paranoid after a bad fallout with an old employer, always muttering about keeping 2 trails and never letting anyone see the first one. My fingers shook as I searched beneath the bed, behind the closet panel, inside the vents. Then I remembered our childhood trick, the fake outlet cover behind his dresser. I pried it open, dust spilling out, and there it was, a small black burner phone wrapped in plastic and duct tape. It still had charge. I unlocked it with his childhood password, blastoff92. My throat tightened when the screen lit up. Only 3 contacts were stored inside JDoc Red Fox, and 1 video file. I pressed play. The grainy footage showed Aaron in the woods, breathless eyes darting. If you're seeing this, I either escaped or I didn't make it. If there's a funeral and a body, that's not me. It's a setup. The people behind it, they're closer than you think. I found something I wasn't supposed to, and now they're trying to shut it down. Start with Daniel. And if you're brave enough, ask Dad about Cold Ridge. Whatever you do, don't trust Mom. The video ended, the screen going black. My heart pounded so loudly it drowned out every thought. My mother, my father, my husband. All of them at the funeral, faces carefully composed, speaking of closure, of moving forward. And now Aaron's voice trembling through the phone, warning me they were the ones who might have orchestrated his disappearance. I collapsed onto his stripped bed, clutching the phone to my chest. 1,000 questions screamed in my mind, but one echoed louder than the rest. What really happened to my twin brother, and why would my own family want me to believe he was dead? I sat in that barren apartment for hours, the burner phone clutched in my hand like it was the last lifeline to my brother. Every creak of the floorboards above, every hum of the refrigerator made me flinch. I kept replaying the video, memorizing every twitch in Aaron's eyes, every ragged breath. He wasn't lying. I knew his face better than I knew my own. By the time I finally left, the sun had dipped low and shadows stretched long across the street. I stuffed the phone deep into my bag, locked the door behind me, and drove home in silence. My mind ran in frantic circles. Cold Ridge Daniel, my parents. Why had Aaron named them? What had he uncovered? When I walked into the house, Daniel was waiting at the kitchen counter, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked up with that practiced smile that used to comfort me, but now made my stomach twist. "You disappeared today," he said lightly. "Like it was nothing. Where'd you go?" My pulse quickened. I just needed air. His eyes lingered on me a little too long, searching. Then he nodded and took a slow sip. "You've been off since the funeral. Don't let grief eat you alive, Claire. Aaron wouldn't want that." The words tasted like poison in my ears. I forced a smile, muttered something about needing a shower, and slipped upstairs. Behind the locked bathroom door, I finally allowed my hands to shake. The phone buzzed in my bag. It was another message from Aaron. "Don't let him see you doubt. They'll know." I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Aaron was alive. He was watching somehow. And he was right, Daniel couldn't know that I knew. That night, I lay awake beside my husband, listening to his steady breathing. I tried to match it, tried to appear calm, but inside, I was burning. Every brush of his arm against mine felt like a betrayal I hadn't uncovered yet. My mind dragged me back to the funeral, his grip on my hand so tight it almost hurt. Was it comfort? Or was it restraint, making sure I didn't run when the truth came too close? The next morning, I decided to test him. Over breakfast, I asked casually, "Do you remember that old cabin at Cold Ridge, the one Dad used to talk about?" For a split second, Daniel's spoon froze midair. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable, but I caught it. Then he laughed, shaking his head. "Cold Ridge. That place hasn't been used in decades. Why bring that up now?" I shrugged, trying to look absent-minded, just remembering. But his eyes sharpened, studying me like a hawk. Strange time to get nostalgic. My heart raced, but I lowered my gaze, forcing a small laugh. "You're right. Must just be the grief." The moment passed, but it left a chill that clung to me all day. I couldn't go to my parents, not after what Aaron had said, but I needed answers. So that evening, while Daniel was on a work call, I drove 2 hours north, winding through dark roads until the mountains loomed ahead. Cold Ridge. The cabin was exactly as I remembered, weathered wood, broken shutters, a roof sagging like it carried secrets too heavy to bear. Inside, the air was damp and musty. Dust coated everything, but there were footprints in the dirt floor, fresh ones. My chest tightened. Someone had been here. I found an old trunk shoved into the corner. The lock was rusted, but a few hard kicks broke it open. Inside were folders, maps, receipts. My shaking hands rifled through them until one paper made me stop cold. It was a deed. Property ownership. The cabin wasn't abandoned at all. It had been purchased 3 years ago. By Daniel, my father, and my mother. My throat closed. What possible reason would they have to secretly own this place? Then I found the final folder. Photos of Aaron. Not smiling, not carefree photos taken from a distance. Grainy shots of him at the grocery store, leaving his apartment, jogging in the park. Surveillance. My brother had been watched for months, maybe years. A noise outside made me freeze. Footsteps, slow, deliberate crunching on the gravel. I shoved the papers back into the trunk and slipped into the shadows, heart pounding so hard I thought it might give me away. Through the crack in the door, I saw a flashlight beam sweep across the yard. Daniel's voice carried through the night. "Claire, are you in there?" My blood ran cold. He had followed me. I pressed my hand over my mouth to stifle my breath, backing deeper into the darkness of the cabin. My brother's warning screamed in my head, "Don't trust your husband." The beam of the flashlight cut through the cracks in the cabin walls like a knife. My body went rigid, every nerve screaming to run, but my legs felt bolted to the floor. Claire Daniels' voice called again, calm, almost teasing. "It's not safe out here. Come on, let's go home." Home. The word rang hollow now. Home had become a trap I hadn't even realized I was living in. My pulse thundered in my ears as I pressed myself against the cold wall, praying he wouldn't come inside. The door creaked open, hinges groaning. His silhouette filled the frame, broad shoulders outlined against the pale wash of moonlight. He stepped in slowly, the beam of his flashlight sweeping the cabin. "You shouldn't be here," he said softly, as if he were the one concerned for me. I held my breath as the light skimmed over the old trunk, now slightly ajar from my frantic search. His steps paused. I knew the second he saw it. He crouched, opening it wider, flipping through the papers with practiced fingers. When he found the folder of photos, he let out a sharp exhale, almost a laugh. "So Aaron couldn't leave well enough alone," after all, he muttered, not to me, but to himself. My stomach twisted. He knew my brother wasn't dead. The flashlight beam shifted again, and this time it landed on me. I raised my hands, instinctively shielding my face. Daniel's expression was unreadable in the harsh light. "Claire," he said gently, "you need to trust me. Whatever you think you found, it's not what it looks like." My voice cracked. "Then tell me what it is. Tell me why my brother warned me not to trust you." His jaw tightened. Aaron always had a wild imagination. He got himself involved in things he didn't understand, dangerous things. "I was trying to protect you." Protect me. The same word my mother had used when she confessed to signing away control of my father's trust. The same excuse wrapped around betrayal like barbed wire dressed in velvet. "You lied to me," I whispered. "You buried someone else in his place. You made me grieve my own brother while you stood there and held my hand." For the first time, his calm cracked. "You don't understand what's at stake. If Aaron had kept digging, he would have put all of us in danger. He had to disappear for both your sake and his." Tears blurred my vision, but anger burned hotter. "Disappear? You call this protecting? You staged his death, Daniel. You made me mourn him." He stepped closer, lowering the flashlight, his voice almost pleading. "Claire, listen to me. There are people involved who don't forgive mistakes. If you keep chasing this, they'll come for you too. I can still shield you, but only if you trust me." I shook my head, backing away. "I don't trust you, not anymore." For a moment, silence hung heavy between us, broken only by the drip of rain through the leaking roof. His face hardened, then cold and resolute. "If that's how you want it, then you leave me no choice." I darted toward the back door before he could move, adrenaline shoving me forward. My shoes skidded across the damp floor, but somehow I burst into the night, sprinting toward the trees. Branches clawed at my arms as I stumbled through the underbrush, my breath ragged, my heart clawing against my ribs. Behind me, Daniel shouted my name, the beam of the flashlight slashing through the dark like a predator's eye. I ran until my legs gave out, collapsing against a mossy rock. My chest heaved as I pulled out Aaron's burner phone with shaking hands. 1 bar of signal. Just enough. I typed a message with trembling fingers. "Daniel knows. He followed me. What do I do?" The reply came almost instantly, as though Aaron had been waiting. "Get out of there. Don't go home. Meet me tomorrow, 3 p.m. at the old train yard." Relief and terror tangled inside me. He was alive. He wanted to see me. But Daniel's words echoed in my mind. There are people who don't forgive mistakes. If Aaron was right, those people weren't just strangers. They were family. I forced myself to move again, keeping to the shadows until I reached my car. My hands shook so badly I fumbled the keys twice before getting the engine to start. As the tires crunched over gravel, I caught one last glimpse of Daniel standing at the edge of the trees, the flashlight hanging limp at his side, his face unreadable in the darkness. When I finally made it back to town, I didn't go home. Instead, I checked into a motel under a fake name, curling up on the stiff bed with the burner phone clutched to my chest. The minutes dragged into hours, every sound outside my door making me flinch. But I wasn't going to back down. Tomorrow I would see Aaron, and tomorrow I would finally learn the truth. The motel room reeked of stale smoke and bleach, but it was the only place where I felt invisible. I barely slept, jerking awake at every slam of a car door outside or shuffle of feet in the hallway. The burner phone sat on the nightstand, its black screen like a single unblinking eye holding the only thread tying me to Aaron. By morning, my nerves were frayed raw. I kept replaying Daniel's voice in my head, that cold shift when I told him I didn't trust him. I knew what that look meant. It meant he wouldn't stop. He couldn't afford to. At 2:30 p.m., I drove toward the abandoned train yard, my pulse racing faster with every mile. Rusted tracks snaked through weeds and graffiti covered the walls of the old station like scars. The place was deserted silence hanging heavy except for the occasional caw of a crow. I parked near a crumbling warehouse and clutched the burner phone tight. "Please, Aaron," I whispered. "Be here." At 3:07, a figure emerged from behind the derailed cars. My breath caught. It was him, my brother, alive. Aaron looked thinner, gaunt, almost his clothes rumpled, and his eyes darting like a hunted animal. But it was him, the same crooked smile, the same dimple in his left cheek. Tears sprang to my eyes as I stumbled toward him. "Aaron!" He held up a hand, stopping me. "Don't. Not too close. They could be watching." The words cut through my relief like ice. I froze, my arms half raised. "I thought you were dead. I saw your coffin lowered into the ground." "That wasn't me," he said grimly. "They staged it, found a body, dressed it in my clothes, and told you a story. All to make you stop asking questions." My throat tightened. Why Aaron? Why would our own family do this? He glanced around, scanning every shadow before answering. "Because I found out what Cold Ridge really is." The name struck me like a match. The cabin. He nodded. "It's not just a cabin, it's a meeting point, a storage hub. Dad's been laundering money through shell companies tied to that property for years. Daniel got involved when he married you. He was the perfect inside man. Mom signs off on the paperwork to keep it clean. When I found proof, they couldn't let me go public. So they erased me." I staggered back, the world tilting beneath me, my own parents, the people who raised us. "You're saying they tried to kill you?" His eyes burned with fury and sorrow. "They would have if I hadn't gotten away. The night of that hike, someone pushed me off the trail. I broke my arm, but I survived. I've been hiding ever since, waiting for the right time." My chest tightened, remembering the funeral, the dry eyes of my parents, their rigid postures. They hadn't been grieving. They'd been guarding a lie. Aaron stepped closer, his voice low and urgent. "Claire, you can't go back. Daniel will never stop watching you. And Mom and Dad, they'll do whatever it takes to protect themselves." Tears blurred my vision. What do we do? How do we fight them? He reached into his jacket and pulled out a flash drive, pressing it into my palm. "This. It has everything. Bank transfers, contracts, surveillance logs, enough to bring them down if we find the right people. But it's dangerous. If they know you have it, you're done." I clenched the drive so tightly it dug into my skin. My family, my husband, all of them woven into a web of betrayal and crime. And now Aaron was asking me to help burn it all down. A sound echoed through the yard, tires on gravel. We both whipped around to see headlights cutting through the gloom. My stomach dropped. Daniel's car. Aaron's eyes widened. "They found us. Run!" Before I could move, the car screeched to a stop and Daniel stepped out, calm as ever, a gun glinting in his hand. "Claire," he said smoothly, his gaze flicking between us. "You should have trusted me." My heart slammed against my ribs as Aaron grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the shadows. Daniel raised the gun, his voice cold and steady. "Neither of you is leaving." In that moment, I realized there was no going back to the life I once knew. I was standing between the brother I thought I'd lost and the husband who wanted to silence us both, and the only way forward was through the fire of betrayal. The gun gleamed in Daniel's hand like a final verdict. My pulse roared in my ears, drowning out everything but the echo of Aaron's grip around my wrist. He pulled me toward the shadows between rusted train cars, but Daniel's voice cut through the air, sharp and steady. "Don't make this harder, Claire. Give me the drive and maybe you walk away." I clutched the flash drive so tightly my knuckles ached. My whole body trembled, but something inside me hardened. He had stolen my trust, my marriage, and nearly my sanity, but he wasn't going to take my brother again. Aaron stepped in front of me, his body a shield. "You'll have to shoot me first." Daniel's lips curved into that same infuriating smirk he wore at the funeral. "That can be arranged." The shot rang out like thunder. My scream tore from my chest as Aaron stumbled, clutching his arm, blood soaking through his sleeve. He didn't fall. He pushed me farther into cover, teeth gritted. Run, Claire! But I didn't run. Not this time. Rage surged through me, hotter than fear. I grabbed a jagged piece of metal from the ground and hurled it at Daniel. It struck his shoulder just enough to make him falter, just enough for Aaron to lunge forward and tackle him. The three of us crashed to the ground in a violent tangle, fists, shouts, the metallic tang of blood in the air. Daniel's gun skittered across the gravel. I scrambled for it, my fingers closing around the cold steel. My breath came in ragged gasps as I raised it, hands shaking. Daniel froze beneath Aaron's grip, his eyes locking onto mine. Claire, don't. You're not a killer. Maybe I wasn't. But I was no longer the woman he could manipulate with soft lies and hollow promises. My finger hovered on the trigger, my vision blurring with tears. Aaron's voice cut through the storm. Don't waste it. We need him alive. We need him to talk. The words snapped me back. I lowered the gun just enough to keep control, my hands steady now. Daniel sneered, but there was fear in his eyes, real fear for the first time. We tied his wrists with a strip of torn fabric, dragging him toward the old warehouse. Inside, under the flickering light of a broken bulb, Aaron and I confronted him. I slammed the flash drive onto the table between us. This has everything, I said, my voice low but unshaking. Every crime, every lie, and you're going to confirm it. Daniel leaned back in the chair, smirk twitching despite the blood on his lip. And if I don't? Aaron's eyes burned with fury. Then the drive goes to the feds and you go down as the scapegoat while your friends vanish into the wind. For once, Daniel had no clever reply. He knew the trap had closed. The hours that followed blurred together recordings, threats, his reluctant confessions spilling out piece by piece. By dawn, we had enough to bury him in the network that bound my parents to him. When the sun finally rose, painting the broken glass of the warehouse in gold, I looked at my twin, the brother I thought I'd lost forever. His arm was bandaged, his face pale, but he was alive. Against all odds, he was alive. Claire, he whispered, his voice raw, you saved me. I shook my head, tears spilling down my cheeks. No, you saved me. You reminded me I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't alone. We turned the evidence over that week. The investigation tore through every secret my parents and Daniel had tried to bury. It didn't erase the scars, but it brought light into the shadows that had nearly consumed us. In the quiet after the storm, I stood once more at the gravesite, where they'd lowered an empty coffin. This time I didn't feel hollow. I felt resolute. That grave didn't mark the death of my brother, it marked the death of my naivety. Betrayal leaves wounds that never fully heal. But it also teaches you something fierce, the power to see through masks, the strength to stand even when the ground crumbles beneath you. So if you've ever been lied to, abandoned, or made to question your own reality, hear me now. You are not weak for surviving it. You are strong because you did. And sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living to tell the truth they tried to bury. If this story moved you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs courage. Subscribe for more stories that reveal the strength hidden in our scars, and leave a comment. Tell me, what truth did you uncover when lies tried to silence you?